Scientists at NASA just confirmed something that sounds like it came straight from a science fiction movie. The James Webb Space Telescope found a planet 120 light-years away from Earth that has a 99.7% chance of having life on it right now. Not maybe life, not possible life, but actual living things that could be swimming, crawling, or floating around on a world we can actually see and study. This discovery happened just months ago, and the scientific community is going absolutely crazy because of what the telescope detected in the atmosphere of this planet. But here's where things get really wild. The signs of life that James Webb found aren't just simple hints or maybes. The telescope picked up specific gases in the air around this planet that scientists say can only be made by living creatures. And the amounts of these gases are so high that there's almost no other explanation except life. Before we dive into exactly what James Webb saw and why scientists are so sure about this, you need to understand something important about how we even found this incredible world in the first place. The planet is called K2-18b, and it orbits a star that's smaller and cooler than our Sun. This star is what astronomers call a red dwarf, and these types of stars are actually the most common kind in our entire galaxy. K2-18b is about 8 times heavier than Earth, which makes it what scientists call a super-Earth. Now, you might be thinking that a planet 8 times bigger than Earth would be a gas giant like Jupiter or Saturn, but that's not the case here. This planet seems to have a solid surface, or at least a very deep ocean underneath all that atmosphere. The really exciting part is that K2-18b sits right in the middle of what astronomers call the habitable zone. This is the perfect distance from its star where the temperature isn't too hot and isn't too cold. It's just right for liquid water to exist on the surface. Scientists sometimes call this the Goldilocks zone because, just like in the fairy tale, everything has to be just right for life to have a chance. But finding a planet in the habitable zone isn't enough to get scientists this excited. We've actually found hundreds of planets in habitable zones around other stars. What makes K2-18b so special is what James Webb detected when it looked at the light passing through the planet's atmosphere. Every time K2-18b passes in front of its star from our view here on Earth, some of the starlight shines through the thin layer of gases surrounding the planet. Different gases absorb different colors of light, so by studying which colors are missing from the starlight that passes through, scientists can figure out exactly what gases are floating around in that distant atmosphere. It's like a fingerprint that tells us what the air is made of on a world that's trillions of miles away. And what James Webb found in that fingerprint changed everything we thought we knew about finding life on other planets. The telescope detected something called dimethyl sulfide in the atmosphere of K2-18b. Now, I know that's a big complicated word, but here's why it matters so much. On Earth, dimethyl sulfide is only produced by living things. Specifically, it's made by tiny plants in the ocean called phytoplankton. These microscopic organisms are so small you need a microscope to see them, but they're incredibly important to life on Earth. They produce about half of all the oxygen we breathe, and they release dimethyl sulfide as a waste product when they're alive and growing. Scientists have studied this gas for decades, and they've never found a non-living process that can create it naturally. Every single time we detect dimethyl sulfide on Earth, it comes from life. So when James Webb found this gas on K2-18b, it was like finding a smoking gun. The telescope wasn't just seeing hints of conditions that might support life. It was seeing the actual chemical signature that life leaves behind. But the discovery gets even more interesting when you look at all the other gases James Webb detected alongside the dimethyl sulfide. The telescope also found large amounts of methane and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. On Earth, methane can be produced by both living things and non-living geological processes, so finding methane alone wouldn't be that special. But the specific combination and amounts of methane, carbon dioxide, and dimethyl sulfide, that James Webb saw match almost perfectly with what we'd expect from a planet covered in a global ocean filled with living organisms. The math works out to that 99.7% probability, because when scientists run computer models trying to explain all these gases without life, the models just don't work. They can't produce the right amounts and combinations unless they include living creatures in the equations. Now, you might be wondering what this planet actually looks like and whether we could ever visit it or send a probe to explore it. Based on all the data James Webb has collected, scientists think K2-18b might be what they call a Hycean world. This is a completely new type of planet that we didn't even know could exist until recently. A Hycean world is a planet that's completely covered by a massive ocean of liquid water, possibly hundreds of miles deep, with a thick, hydrogen-rich atmosphere above it. The word Hycean comes from combining hydrogen and ocean, and these planets might actually be some of the best places in the universe to look for life. The ocean on K2-18b could be so deep that the pressure at the bottom creates exotic forms of ice that we don't have on Earth. And floating on top of this endless ocean, there might be trillions upon trillions of microscopic living things producing the gases that James Webb detected. The temperature on K2-18b is estimated to be between 0 and 50 degrees Celsius, which is the same range as temperatures we have on Earth. This means any water on the planet would definitely be liquid and not frozen or boiling away into space. The atmosphere is thick enough to provide protection from harmful radiation coming from the star, but not so thick that it creates crushing pressure on the surface. Everything about this world seems designed to support life. But here's something that makes this discovery even more mind-blowing. The star that K2-18b orbits is much older than our Sun. It's been around for billions of years longer than our solar system has existed. This means that if life did start on K2-18b, it's had way more time to evolve and develop than life on Earth has had. When the first simple life appeared on Earth about 3.5 billion years ago, K2-18b might have already had oceans full of living organisms for billions of years before that. The James Webb Space Telescope was able to make this incredible discovery because of its massive gold-plated mirror and its ability to see infrared light. Infrared is a type of light that's invisible to human eyes, but it's perfect for studying the atmospheres of distant planets. The telescope orbits the Sun about 1 million miles away from Earth, far from all the heat and light pollution that would interfere with its incredibly sensitive instruments. When James Webb looks at a planet like K2-18b, it's essentially acting like the most powerful chemistry lab in the universe, breaking down the light into its component parts and analyzing every tiny detail. The data that came back from K2-18b was so clear and so strong that scientists couldn't believe what they were seeing at first. They ran the analysis over and over again, checking for errors or problems with the instruments. But every time they looked at the data, the same signals appeared: dimethyl sulfide, methane, carbon dioxide, all in the exact amounts you'd expect from a living world. What makes this discovery different from other potential signs of life we've found before is the level of confidence scientists have in the results. In the past, when researchers found interesting gases on other planets, there were always alternative explanations that didn't require life. Maybe volcanic activity could explain the gases. Maybe chemical reactions in the atmosphere could produce them. Maybe our instruments weren't quite good enough to be sure what we were really seeing. But with K2-18b, all those alternative explanations have been ruled out one by one. The planet doesn't have enough volcanic activity to produce these gases. The atmospheric chemistry models don't work without including biological processes, and James Webb's instruments are so precise that there's virtually no chance of a mistake or misreading. The 99.7% probability isn't just a guess or a hopeful estimate. It comes from rigorous statistical analysis of thousands of different scenarios and possibilities. The discovery is also forcing scientists to completely rethink how common life might be in the universe. For decades, researchers assumed that life required a planet almost exactly like Earth. It needed to be rocky, have a similar size and mass, orbit a star like our Sun, and have conditions almost identical to what we see in our own solar system. But K2-18b breaks all those rules. It's much bigger than Earth. It orbits a completely different type of star. It might not even have solid land, just an endless ocean. And yet it appears to be teeming with life. This suggests that the universe might be absolutely filled with living worlds that don't look anything like Earth. For every planet like ours, there might be dozens or hundreds of Hycean worlds with their own unique forms of life. The galaxy might be far more alive than we ever imagined. But finding evidence of life is just the beginning of the questions that K2-18b raises. Scientists now want to know what kind of life exists there. Is it just simple single-celled organisms like bacteria? Or could there be more complex life forms swimming in those deep oceans? Could there be something like fish or plants or even intelligent creatures? Right now we have no way to know for sure, because the gases James Webb detected are only produced by simple, microscopic life on Earth. But that doesn't mean more complex life couldn't have evolved on K2-18b over its billions of years of existence. The planet has had an enormous amount of time for evolution to work its magic, and evolution on a completely different world might produce forms of life we can't even imagine. The next steps in studying K2-18b are already being planned by teams of scientists around the world. James Webb will continue to observe the planet during different seasons of its year, looking for any changes in the atmospheric gases that might tell us more about the life forms there. Other telescopes both on Earth and in space are being pointed at K2-18b to gather additional data and confirm Webb's findings. Scientists are also working on new computer models to simulate what the environment on K2-18b might be like and what kinds of living things could survive there. Some researchers are even starting to think about whether we could ever communicate with K2-18b if intelligent life exists there. At 120 light-years away, it would take 120 years for a radio message from Earth to reach the planet, and another 120 years for a reply to come back. That's longer than a human lifetime, but it might still be worth trying someday. The discovery also raises profound questions about humanity's place in the cosmos. For all of human history, we've wondered whether we're alone in the universe. Every culture and civilization has looked up at the stars and asked if anyone else is out there. And now, for the first time, we have strong scientific evidence that we're not alone. There are other worlds with life on them. Worlds we can see and study and learn from. This changes everything about how we think about ourselves and our planet. Earth is no longer unique. Life is no longer a one-time miracle that only happened here. Instead, life seems to be a natural part of the universe, something that emerges whenever and wherever conditions are right. This realization is both humbling and exciting. We're part of something much bigger than just our own planet. The technology that made this discovery possible is itself a marvel worth understanding. The James Webb Space Telescope cost about $10 billion to design, build, and launch into space. It took thousands of scientists and engineers working for more than 20 years to complete. The telescope's main mirror is made of 18 separate hexagonal segments coated in a microscopically thin layer of gold. Gold was chosen because it's the best material for reflecting infrared light. The entire mirror is about 21 feet across, which makes it much larger than the mirror on the Hubble Space Telescope. But size isn't the only thing that makes James Webb special. The telescope's instruments are so sensitive that they can detect the heat from a bumblebee on the moon if there were bees on the moon. This incredible sensitivity is what allowed James Webb to pick up the faint signals of gases in K2-18b's atmosphere, even though the planet is trillions of miles away. When James Webb launched on Christmas Day in 2021, the whole world watched as the most expensive and complex telescope ever built, rocketed into space. The telescope was folded up like origami inside the rocket, and after reaching space, it had to unfold itself through a series of hundreds of precise movements, any one of which could have failed and destroyed the mission. But everything worked perfectly, and James Webb has been delivering stunning images and groundbreaking discoveries ever since. The detection of life signs on K2-18b might be the telescope's most important finding yet, but it probably won't be the last. James Webb is expected to operate for at least 20 years, and during that time it will study hundreds of other planets around distant stars. If life exists on K2-18b, it almost certainly exists on other planets too, and James Webb will help us find them. The impact of this discovery on society and culture is already beginning to be felt. News of the findings spread rapidly through social media and news outlets around the world. People everywhere are talking about what it means to know that life exists beyond Earth. Religious leaders are grappling with how this fits into various faith traditions. Philosophers are discussing what obligations we might have toward life on other worlds. Science fiction writers are having a field day imagining what the creatures on K2-18b might be like. And children in schools everywhere are learning that they live in a universe filled with other living worlds. This generation of young people will grow up knowing for certain that life exists elsewhere, which is something no previous generation in human history could say. The discovery also has implications for the search for intelligent life in the universe. If simple microscopic life can exist on a planet as different from Earth as K2-18b, then perhaps intelligent life could exist on many different types of worlds too. Scientists working on SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, are now expanding their search to include Hycean worlds like K2-18b. Maybe we've been looking for alien civilizations in the wrong places. Maybe instead of focusing on Earth-like rocky planets, we should be looking at ocean worlds with thick atmospheres. An intelligent civilization on a Hycean world might develop completely different types of technology than we have. They might not use fire or metals, since everything would be wet. But they could still develop advanced science and technology using the unique resources available on their world. The chemistry happening on K2-18b is also fascinating to scientists who study how life begins. The gases James Webb detected tell us something important about the biological processes happening there. The presence of dimethyl sulfide means there are organisms using sulfur in their metabolism, just like some microscopic life on Earth does. The methane suggests there might also be organisms that produce methane as a waste product, similar to certain bacteria on Earth. And the carbon dioxide is a key ingredient for photosynthesis, which is how plants on Earth turn sunlight into energy. All of these gases together paint a picture of a complex ecosystem with multiple types of organisms interacting with each other and their environment. It's not just one or two isolated life forms barely hanging on. It's a thriving biosphere that's been established for potentially billions of years. One of the most exciting aspects of this discovery is that it's just the beginning. K2-18b is relatively close to us in cosmic terms at 120 light-years away. There are thousands of other planets at similar distances that James Webb hasn't studied yet. Each one of those planets could potentially harbor life. In the coming years, as James Webb and other telescopes survey more and more planets, we're likely to find dozens or even hundreds of worlds with signs of life. The universe is probably filled with life in all sorts of strange and wonderful forms. Some planets might have life in underground oceans like Jupiter's moon Europa. Others might have life floating in thick clouds like what might exist on Venus. And still others might have life on the surface in forests and grasslands like Earth. The diversity of life in the universe could be beyond anything we've ever imagined. The scientists who made this discovery are being careful not to overstate their findings, but their excitement is obvious when they talk about K2-18b. Dr. Niku Madhusudan from Cambridge University led the team that analyzed the James Webb data, and he said that this is the most promising sign of life on another planet that we've ever found. Other researchers who've reviewed the findings agree that the evidence is extremely strong. Some scientists are already calling this one of the most important discoveries in the history of astronomy, ranking it alongside the discovery that Earth orbits the Sun, or that the universe is expanding. It's the kind of finding that changes how we see our place in the cosmos and opens up entirely new fields of scientific study. The political and economic implications of the discovery are also starting to become clear. Space agencies around the world are now competing to build even more powerful telescopes that can study K2-18b and other potentially living worlds in greater detail. Private companies are proposing missions to build enormous space telescopes that could actually take pictures of the surfaces of nearby exoplanets. Some visionaries are even talking about sending robotic probes to K2-18b, although with current technology, such a journey would take tens of thousands of years. But technology advances quickly, and what seems impossible today might become routine in the future. Perhaps in a few hundred years, our descendants will be able to visit K2-18b and see its alien ocean firsthand. The discovery also raises important ethical questions about how we should interact with life on other worlds. If K2-18b has a thriving ecosystem of its own, do we have the right to interfere with it or study it? Should we try to communicate with any life there, or would that be dangerous? What if we accidentally contaminate the planet with Earth microbes if we ever send a probe there? These are questions that scientists, philosophers, and policymakers are already starting to debate. The United Nations has committees that deal with space law, and they're now considering new rules and guidelines for how humanity should approach worlds with potential life. It's crucial that we get this right because our decisions today will affect not just our own future, but potentially the future of life on other planets. The public reaction to the discovery has been overwhelmingly positive and excited. Surveys show that most people are thrilled by the news and eager to learn more about K2-18b and other potentially living worlds. Social media has been flooded with artists' impressions of what K2-18b might look like, with endless blue oceans under thick cloudy skies illuminated by the reddish light of its dim star. People are imagining what it would be like to sail on those alien seas or dive beneath the waves to explore what lies there. The discovery has reignited public interest in space exploration and science in general. Applications to study astronomy and astrobiology at universities have surged. Children everywhere are saying they want to be astronomers when they grow up, so they can discover new planets and search for alien life. What's particularly remarkable about this discovery is how quickly it happened after James Webb became operational. The telescope only started making scientific observations in mid-2022, and within a year it had already found compelling evidence of life on another world. This suggests that finding life elsewhere might be much easier than we thought. We don't need to search for decades or centuries, we just need the right tools and the right targets. K2-18b was already known to exist before James Webb studied it. The planet was first discovered by the Kepler Space Telescope in 2015, but Kepler didn't have the capability to study the planet's atmosphere in detail. It took James Webb's powerful infrared instruments to reveal the secrets hiding in that atmosphere. This shows the importance of building better and better telescopes and continuing to push the boundaries of what's technologically possible. The story of K2-18b also demonstrates the power of international scientific cooperation. The team that made the discovery included researchers from universities and institutions in the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, France, Germany, and many other countries. Scientists shared data, compared results, and worked together to understand what James Webb was showing them. This kind of cooperation is essential for tackling the big questions about our place in the universe. No single country or institution has all the answers, but by working together, humanity can achieve incredible things. The discovery of life on K2-18b is a triumph for all of humanity, not just for one nation or one group of scientists. As we look to the future, K2-18b will remain a major focus of astronomical research for years to come. Every observation, every new piece of data, brings us closer to understanding what life is like on this distant world. Future telescopes, even more powerful than James Webb, are already being planned, and K2-18b will be one of their prime targets. Within the next decade or two, we might be able to study the planet in such detail that we can start to answer questions about what specific types of organisms live there, how their biochemistry works, and whether more complex life exists alongside the simple microbes. Every answer will lead to new questions, and the cycle of discovery will continue. The existence of life on K2-18b also has implications for the search for life closer to home within our own solar system. If life can exist on a world as different from Earth as K2-18b, then maybe life could exist in the underground oceans of Jupiter's moons Europa and Ganymede, or Saturn's moon Enceladus. Maybe life exists in the methane lakes of Saturn's moon Titan, or in the clouds of Venus, or buried deep in the soil of Mars. The discovery that life can thrive in such different conditions expands the list of places where we should be looking. NASA and other space agencies are already planning missions to these locations to search for any signs of life, and the success at K2-18b gives researchers hope that those missions might find something amazing. Scientists estimate that there could be billions of planets in our galaxy alone that might be capable of supporting life. If even a small percentage of those planets actually do have life, then the Milky Way could be home to millions or even billions of living worlds. And our galaxy is just one of hundreds of billions of galaxies in the observable universe. The total number of planets with life could be so large that it's almost incomprehensible. We might be living in a universe that's absolutely teeming with life in every corner, on every type of world imaginable. K2-18b is just the first one we've been able to confirm, but it surely won't be the last. In the coming years and decades, we'll discover more and more living worlds, and each one will teach us something new about how life works and what forms it can take. The 99.7% probability that K2-18b has life isn't absolute certainty, but it's as close as science can get without actually going there and seeing the life firsthand. That remaining 0.3% accounts for the tiny possibility that we're wrong about how dimethyl sulfide is produced, or that there's some unknown chemical process we haven't discovered yet that could make this gas without life. But scientists have thought long and hard about these alternative explanations, and none of them fit the data, as well as the explanation that involves living organisms. The smart money is definitely on life being present on K2-18b, and most researchers in the field would bet their careers on this discovery being real.